For years, the world saw her as a victim, a prisoner in a gilded cage. We talked about her apathy and her reluctance to be First Lady. But while critics pitied the unhappy Melania, she was practicing what the press would later call quiet radicalism. She didn't fight the system, she outlasted it, turning her absence into the most powerful political capital in U.S. history. Photographers used to say, "She doesn't know how to move." But that discipline became her armor. She was the perfect rear guard for Donald, until the rear became the front. Her gestures, refusing to go to Davos, visiting museums instead of accompanying her husband, were not simply acts of resentment. They were the first moves of a player who realized that in the United States, the First Lady is not an accessory to her husband. It is an institution. And Melania decided to seize that institution entirely. January 2026. The most expensive documentary film in history, $75 million from Amazon. While critics tear apart the propaganda, bot farms and algorithms create a new reality. 99% approval. It's a digital facelift. The goal is to transform the image of a silent wife into that of a national icon. When the budget can buy all the marketing in the world, truth becomes a matter of price. While the nation argues about bots, Melania is changing America's architectural code. The construction of a giant ballroom for 500 guests made of Slovenian marble is not a renovation. It's the building of a throne room. The old East Wing, once a ghost town, has been turned into a command center with resources surpassing even Donald's own staff. She is literally inscribing her aesthetic into the foundation of history, preparing the stage for her own coronation. In high-level politics, there are appointments made for headlines, and those made for history. When the White House announced the creation of a new position, Special Envoy for National Unity with expanded powers, Washington froze. This is not a ceremonial role. It is the transfer of the keys to the country's ideological arsenal. Melania Trump has officially stepped out of the shadows of the East Wing bedrooms. Now in her hands is control over the multi-billion-dollar Legacy of the Future Fund. Formally, her task is the healing of a divided society and overseeing large-scale social reforms. But if we look at the job description approved by the president, we see something else. She has been granted the authority to negotiate directly with state governors and the leaders of the largest Silicon Valley corporations, the very ones who just yesterday financed her $75 million documentary film. This appointment legalizes her presence at closed National Security Council meetings. Her involvement in politics is now not the whim of her husband, but a matter of state necessity. Critics call it a dynastic maneuver. Lawyers call it a legal precedent. But for Melania herself, it is the final stage of preparation. Look at her first steps in the new role. She didn't go to open playgrounds. Her first official visit as Envoy was to a closed Air Force base and a meeting with the families of officers in Texas. She is stepping into territory that was always considered Donald's men's club. She is capturing his electorate, but doing it with surgical precision. Where Trump Sr. used a sledgehammer and loud slogans, provoking the fury of the opposition, Melania uses steel velvet. She speaks of unity, of children, of the future, words impossible to fight without looking like a monster. Insiders report that her new office in the reconstructed East Wing now works around the clock. The appointment gave her the right to her own budget, independent from the president's staff. Now she has her own strategists, her own data analysts, and her own protocol service. In essence, Donald Trump has created a parallel government within the executive branch and placed at its head the one person he trusts unconditionally. While the president is consumed by legal battles and foreign policy confrontations, Melania, using her new position, methodically builds her own vertical of power. She no longer represents the president. She represents an alternative to him. Appointment to this post is an inauguration before the inauguration. America hasn't voted yet, but Melania is already ruling, conditioning the nation to the idea that the Trump name in the White House is serious and long-term. And if this plan works, the ballroom she is building will become the place where she takes the oath not as a spouse, but as the lawful heir to power. February 28, 2026. The world woke up to reports of Operation Lion's Roar. While American and Israeli missiles struck targets in Tehran and Isfahan, something happened in Washington that forever changed the protocol of the White House. For the first time in history, the First Lady was officially present in the Situation Room at the start of full-scale hostilities. Critics panicked. On what grounds? But the answer is already prepared. Her new appointment. As Special Envoy for National Unity, she is there to oversee the humanitarian dimension and domestic stability. But those who see the full picture understand. Melania is being written into the script of war. Look at the photo that spread across social media. Donald is recording an address on Truth Social, calling on Iranians to overthrow the regime, while at the same time Melania, using her new powers at the UN, prepares an emergency meeting of the Security Council. She is the only one who can speak of peace through strength, without provoking accusations of aggression. While the sky over Jerusalem and Bahrain lights up with flashes of interceptions, the East Wing is buzzing with activity. Her team launches the Legacy of the Future campaign for refugees and military families. It is a brilliant move. Donald assumes the role of the punishing sword, while Melania becomes the builder who will come to construct on the ruins of the old world. The Iranian attack became the perfect catalyst for her. If earlier her presidential ambitions seemed like a conspiracy theory, today, against the backdrop of explosions in the Persian Gulf, she looks like the only stable element in the stormy ocean of Trump-era geopolitics. Construction of her ballroom at the White House continues despite the war. But now the building is perceived differently. It is no longer a place for balls. In the context of global conflict, it is the future headquarters of a woman who has proven she can remain ice cold when the world stands on the brink of nuclear apocalypse. The marriage, once called toxic, turned out to be the most successful political alliance of the century. Donald Trump built a wall on the border, but Melania built the foundation for a new dynasty. The quiet backwater has overflowed its banks. America has not yet voted, but Melania is already ruling. And when the doors of her golden hall swing open, the nation will see a leader who did not simply take the president's seat, but became it long before the election.